Guru Radhana Discha Guru Paramadevatam Guru Parataram Nasti Kripalu Gurave Namah Kasturi Tilakam Lalat Patale Vakshasthale Kaustubham Nasagre Var Muktikam Karatale Venu Kare Kankanam Sarvangi Harichandanam Sulalitam Kanthe Cha Muktavali Gopastri Pariveshtito Vijayate Gopal Chudamani Nayanam Galadashrudharya Vadanam Gadgad Ruddhaya Gira Pulakair Nichitam Vapuh Kada Tavanam Grahane Bhavishyati Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedanscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tagvang Hadeva Matma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. Dear devotees, we have all gathered here on this intensive because all of us desire one eternal gift, the divine love of Sri Radha Krishna. It is their infinite grace, their mercy, their kindness, their love for us that they manifested their divine name in this world, so that through their divine name we can reach them. The bliss of their divine name, the ras of their divine name, is being freely and liberally and abundantly distributed, is being poured and showered by Sri Maharaj through his divine chantings. We all know, we have all experienced that the effect of Sri Maharaj's divine chantings, it is so extremely, it's very deep, profound. It is so extremely pacifying and very, very soul gratifying. Whether a soul or an individual is a devotee of Sri Maharaj or not, is familiar with Sri Maharaj's divine teachings or not, or whether one is a devotee, the experience is the same, soul gratifying, so extremely uplifting, very, very elevating, extremely soothing. I remember years ago in the early 80s, in 1984, when my mother, when she went to India, and Sri Maharaj was in Bombay at that time. And I believe it was the first time that Sri Maharaj sent Shakuntala Mummy, Shakuntala ji, to a studio for the recording of her chantings. And she was not allowed to use a harmonium. And she was so used to using a harmonium. And she just had to stand and sing, chant Sri Maharaj's chantings, pads, while the musicians were all playing the different instruments. And she was chanting. But what was hard was that all of those musicians, they were just workers. They had no connection whatsoever with Sri Maharaj's satsang. But they were so immersed and their minds were so absorbed. They were almost dancing, swaying while playing those musical instruments. Their minds they were so ecstatic. They had no idea what was going on. Again, the effect, the grace of Sri Maharaj's divine chantings. I want to share one of my own experiences. Once years ago, I was in Vrindavan. And I got a call from Swamiji, and he told me to come to Delhi. But on the way, I could go and meet Maharaji. He was in Faridabad at that time. So we started from Vrindavan, and we had the address of where Sri Maharaji was and the house where he was staying. But because Faridabad it's set up in such a weird way that there's divided in sectors, but they're not in any kind of order. So they're all over, and no particular order or sequence of sectors. So we started to look for that house where Sri Maharaji was staying, and on the way we stopped and asked a few people, and everyone gave their own kind of directions of how to get to this house. Anyway, somehow just going in circles and looking, we ended up in that vicinity, but we still could not find the house where Sri Maharaji was staying. And the way that we found the house was when we got closer to the house, I heard Sushree Devi's chanting. And I heard her chanting, and I told Nagin Bhai, I said, stop, we're here. It's somewhere here. The house is nearby. And then when I got out, I saw the driveway was covered with a bed of shoes. And of course, a couple of devotees were standing outside. The point is, Maharaji's Kirtan, although I didn't know where I was, that Maharaji was in the house nearby, but the effect of the chanting in that neighborhood, and I heard it from the car, it was so deep, and it was so exciting and so thrilling, and I knew that I was there. So this is the effect of Sri Maharaji's divine grace in the form of his divine chantings. 3 nights ago, I started to talk about the greatness of the divine name. It purifies the mirror of our heart. It brings contentment at every step of our life. Sri Maharaji says in the Radha Govind Geet, Kali sama yuga nahi Govind Radhe Hari Naam Hari Dhyan Hari se mila de. The divine name of Radha Krishna, of God, has been echoed, and the greatness of their divine name has been echoed throughout our scriptures, and how great it is. Sri Maharaji says in the Radha Govind Geet that there's no other age like this age that we're in, Kali Yuga. Why? Because in this very age, we chant the divine name and we remember Nami, God, do remembrance, and lovingly chant the divine name. And when we do that wholeheartedly, with our fullest capacity, with all of our love, exclusive love, single-mindedly, then we get to meet Radha Krishna. All of our scriptures emphasize the importance and the greatness of the divine name, and so do our acharyas, our Jagadgurus, the saints, the descended saints. I ended my last speech with a question that although the divine name of God is eternal, Nam, the divine name, and Nami, God, they're both one and the same. They have the same number of powers. We have not yet realized God, because first we need to purify our heart. So the divine name, it helps us to purify our heart. We have chanted the divine name uncountable times, and yet, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji says in his Ashtapadi, Naam naam kari bahudha nij sarva shaktis tatrarpita niyamitah smaranena kalah etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva drishyamiha janinanuragah. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, in the words of a devotee, he is saying that, oh, my beloved Krishna, you have imbued in your divine name your divine powers, your grace, your divine love. You yourself reside in your divine name. But it is my misfortune that when I chant your divine name, that I don't experience that ras, that bliss that is in your divine name. Shri Maharaji translates this verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji in the Radha Govind Geet, and he says, Naam mein hai sarva shakti Govind Radhe Durdaiva Vash Vishwas na bata de Durdaiva artha yah Govind Radhe Naam aparadha Naam phal ko nasade. That the divine love of Sri Krishna, it is in his divine name. However, Durdaiva Vasha, because of Durdaiva, we do not experience that ras, that bliss. So, what is the meaning of Durdaiva? Durdaiva artha yaha Govinda Radhe Nama Aparadha. All of our sins and spiritual transgressions that we have committed in our endless lifetimes, they become an impediment. They obstruct the receptivity of our heart to experience that grace. However, when we surrender to a saint such as Sri Maharaji, Maharaji is not even a saint, he is Avatari Mahapurush, not even that. He's way above that. So when we surrender to our Guru, then with the grace of our Guru, our sins and our transgressions are cancelled or destroyed to the extent of our Sharanagati, to the extent of our surrender to Him. And His grace in that form allows us to experience that ras. Saint Kabir Das Ji, he tells us how we should remember the divine name in his own style. So he says, Sumiran ki sudhiyo karo, Sumiran ki sudhiyo karo, Jo surabhi sutamahi, Kaha Kabir charo charat, Bisarat kabhu nahi. So Kabir Das Ji tells us how we should remember the divine name. So he gives an example of a cow. He says that we should remember the divine name just as a cow remembers its calf. its baby. So when the cow goes to graze in the morning, she thinks, I will graze, I will eat the grass, and I will have milk, and then I will have milk for my baby. So she goes with that in her mind. Kabir Das Ji is telling us that that's what she's thinking, and she goes. So that cow, her attachment is not in that grass. It is in her baby and the calf. So Kabir Das Ji tells us that whatever we have to do in order to manage our lifestyle and to live in this world and to survive in this world, we should do it as our duty. It's a responsibility. It is our duty. But the attachment of our mind, just like that mother cow, the attachment of our mind should be in God as we live our life in this world. And when that cow, when she returns, when she's coming home in the evening, and she gets so excited to meet her baby, and she makes this sound in Hindi, it's called Rambhana. She makes this, I guess the closest translation is bellowing. She makes this bellowing sound. And so she gets real excited, and when her baby hears her, then the baby gets also very excited to meet her, its mother. So Kabir Das Ji tells us that when we spend our time in sadhana, in devotion, just like we engage our 5 physical senses to indulge in the world and enjoy the objects of our 5 physical senses, of course, the desire is in the mind, but the senses are the means through which we experience the world. So just as when we engage our senses to experience the world and the worldly gratification, in the same way, we should engage our mind we should engage our senses in devotion, where we should feel in our heart and mind that, oh, when will that day come when I will receive, with these eyes, I will receive the darshan, the vision of Sri Radha Krishna. With this nose, I will receive the divine fragrance of their divine body. With these ears, I will be able to hear Krishna's divine flute, calling my name. When will that day come? And with this rasana, when will I be able to taste the sweetness of their divine love, their divine bliss? And with this tvacha, when will I experience their divine touch? Because this bhakti, this sadhana that Sri Maharaji is teaching us, is guiding us through, there are no rules, restrictions, restraints. We have all the freedom that we possibly want, because na desh niyamas tasmin, na kal niyamas tatha, no chishtado nishedhosti, Shri Harera Nam Nilugdhake. We don't have to worry about where we're going to sit to do our sadhana, the space or the place or the timing. We don't have to worry about anything. We have that liberty, that freedom to do our sadhana however our mind prefers and likes. So this is how we should remember the divine name according to Kabir Das Ji, Saint Kabir. Our scriptures tell us, Yoga Darshan tells us, Tad japas tadartha bhavanam. Again, Sri Maharaji has translated this Yoga Sutra, and he says, Japa hoya kirtana Govinda Radhe Rup dhyan bhi ho Yog darshan bata de. Whether we chant the divine name, japa ho ya kirtan, or whether we do japa, remember the divine name on that japa beads, we must do Rup Dhyan, remembrance of the divine form of Sri Radha Krishna. Just as we do in the world, we do it daily. We may not realize it or we may not think about it, but we do it all the time. So what do we do? Jag mein bhi kahu ko Govinda Radhe Purva Rup Dhyan Pache Naam Le Bata De. Pehle Bulavo Hari Govinda Radhe Pache Hari Naam Gun Leela Suna De. Radha Govind Geet. So just as when we remember anyone in the world, whoever we are thinking about or remembering, their image comes to our mind first. And then we say their name. Oh, that guy, he is tall and his fair complexioned. That Ramesh. We say the name after, the image comes to our mind first. So, Yoga Darshan is telling us the same thing, that when we chant the divine name of Radha Krishna, we should bring Radha Krishna in front of us first and then sing their divine name. Namo upasva Chandogyopanishad Yatha pratimam Vishnu buddhya upasate tadvat Shankaracharya. He says that just as when we go to mandir, when we go to temples, and there are so many different pratimas, or the deities of God in most temples, that is what we see. There's Ram Parivar, Bhagwan Ram and Sita Ji and Lakshman and Hanuman Ji is there. And then Shankar, Parvati are there, and Sri Radha Krishna are there. So when we see them, when we have their darshan in the mandir, in the temple, then we have those feelings in our heart. We bring those feelings in our heart. Radha Krishna, Ram Parivar, Shankar, Parvati. So in the same way, when we sing the divine name, we must remember Nami, the divine form of God. Very important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji tells us how we should remember in his Ashtapadi, the feelings that we should have in our heart and mind, with that feeling of yearning and longing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji tells us, Nayanam galada shrudharaya Vadanam gadgad रुद्धया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति. Shri Maharaji has translated this verse in the Radha Govind Geet. I love to chant these dohas of the Radha Govind Geet. So I always like to sing them in my lectures. So Shri Maharaji says, Vah din kab aaye गोविंद राधे जब हरि नाम लेके आंसू बहाए. वह दिन कब आए गोविंद राधे जब नाम वाणी गद गद करा दे. वह दिन कब आए गोविंद राधे जब हरि नाम रोमांच करा दे. So this verse describes the feelings of a devotee's heart who is calling out to Krishna, Shri Krishna, and he is saying that, oh, Shri Krishna, I am longing for that day. I am longing for that day when, while chanting your divine name, tears of love will flow from my eyes. When will that day come when, while remembering you, my body will feel a thrill, a divine thrill? And when will that day come when my voice will choke with emotional feelings of love for you? Oh Krishna, I am longing for that day. And Sri Maharaji has depicted the same bhav in one of his pads. Oh, dina kab aayi hai, aho hari, oh, dina kab aayi hai, aho hari, गावत गुण गोपाल निरंतर, गावत गुण गोपाल निरंतर, दृगान आश्रु बारसई है, अहो हरि, दृगान आश्रु बारसई है, अहो हरि. Aho Dina Kab Ai Aho Hari. Oh Krishna, I am longing for that day when, while singing your divine name, tears of love and longing will flow from my eyes. Further, Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji tells us the bhav that we should have in our heart when we sing their divine name. Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravrishayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Vah din kab aaye Govind Radhe Jab Hari Binu Pal Kalp Janade. Vah din kab aaye Govind Radhe Jab Hari Binu Jag Shunya Bana De. Oh Krishna, I am longing for that day when Shunyayitam Jagat Sarvam, while longing for your divine vision, this whole world will seem dull and tasteless. In Hindi, the word is niras, tuchh, naganya. And when will that day come when a moment in your separation will feel like ages have passed? Kalapa saman. Goswami Tulsidas Ji has expressed in the bhav, the feelings of his heart. He says, Hiya phatahu phutahu nayana jarahu satanu ke hi kama dravahi sravahi pulaka hi nahi tulsi sumirat ram. So he says that we have shed so many tears in longing and yearning for the world and the worldly people. We have shed so many tears. But if our heart does not melt while chanting their divine name, then our heart is bekar, useless. What's the point of it? And here phatahu phutahu nayana, that our eyes are, that don't shed tears of love for their darshan, those eyes are useless. And the sharir, jarahu sa tanu ke hi kaam, our eyes should be destroyed, they're of no use, and our body should be burned if it does not experience the thrill of their divine name. This is what Tulsidas Ji says in very, very strong words, of course. In aakhin mahadhuri bhari bhari muthi mein liye those eyes that have shed so many tears for the world, if those eyes do not shed tears of love for Radha Krishna, then they should be packed with mitti, dirt. That's what Tulsidas ji says. But if we don't experience tears during our sadhana, during our devotions, we don't have to destroy our eyes. We don't have to pack dirt in our eyes. Tulsidas ji is only expressing the humble feelings of his heart. We don't have to feel disheartened or discouraged. There is an incident in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji in this regard, that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji used to lead the satsang of Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the divine name, it was his agya, it was his instructions to his devotees that while chanting the divine name, that they should shed tears of love and longing and yearning and in separation. So there is one devotee in that satsang. No matter how hard he tried, he did not get tears. And he took this advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji very seriously and to heart. And he thought that if it is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji's agya that I must shed tears, so I must follow his agya. But no matter how much he tried, he did not get tears. So he decided to get tears in his eyes. So what he did was he took a piece of cloth, and in that piece of cloth he put mirchi, powdered chili. And he made a little bundle, and when the satsang was going on, then he would touch it to his eyes. And when his eyes burned, obviously tears would come. And so someone saw during the satsang that he was doing that, and they went and told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji. So Mahaprabhu ji called him and he said, "Tum kya karte ho? What do you do when satsang is going on, I heard?" And he said that, "Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji, it is your agya, it is your instruction that we must shed tears of love. However, my heart is so kathor. My heart is so hardened. It is so hard that it does not melt. I don't experience tears no matter how hard I try." So this is why I do this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji said to that other devotee, "You were complaining about him. Isne to tattva ko samajh liya." You are complaining about him, but he understands and realizes the importance of my instruction. He realizes the importance of this agya or tattva or the knowledge that is our goal, that is our lakshya, our aim is to purify our heart and mind. So once we understand the knowledge, the philosophy, the siddhant, which is so extremely important, as Bhaiya also Maheshwaranand Bhaiya emphasized last night, it is the foundation. It serves as the foundation. If we want to build a temple of Bhakti, then we need a strong foundation. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji said, he understands the value of my teachings. That is more important. And the other part, it will happen also. So, Tulsidas ji is only expressing his feelings in such a way. And this satsang of Sri Maharaj ji is so elevating. It is so amazing that there's not a single soul that would come to Sri Maharaj ji's satsang and remain bereft of those tears of love for Radha Krishna. So this is what our scriptures tell us. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji is telling us how we should remember the divine name. Sing the divine name, but remember Nami. Do remembrance also. On the other hand, our scriptures tell us, Sanketyam parihasyam vastobham helanameva va Vaikunthanam grahanam ashesha gharam viduhu. Bhagavatam. That on the one hand, our scriptures tell us that we should sing, chant the divine name with love, along with remembrance of the divine form of Radha Krishna. We should do remembrance also, chanting of the divine name and Rup Dhyan. On the other hand, our scriptures tell us it doesn't matter how we chant the divine name, we will receive the benefit of the chanting the divine name. That is all we have to do. Parihasyam va, whether we sing the divine name or say it jokingly, just as if somebody is saying Radhe Radhe, singing Radhe Radhe all the time, and someone says, look at him, he is always saying Radhe 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 Radhe. So if we just say it like that, or Stobham Helanameva va, while yawning Ha Radhe, or while stretching Radhe, we can say Radhe name like that. Stobham Helanameva va. It doesn't matter. Or just like those singers when they chant the divine names and the devotional songs, but their mind is in the gaje baje and the instruments that are being played. So if we sing it like that, our scriptures say, the Bhagavatam tells us that we will receive the benefit. Adi Jagadguru Shankaracharya says, Shraddha bhaktyor abhavepi bhagwan nam sankirtanam samastam duritam nashayati tyuktam. So he says, whether we say it with Shraddha, with faith or without faith, if we just simply remember and chant and sing the divine name, that we will get the benefit. Tulsidas ji says the same thing. Bhav kubhav anakha alas hu naam japat mangal dishi dash hu. Bhav se lo, kubhav se lo, whether we say it with love or without love, with feelings or no feelings, just singing the divine name, yes, we will receive the benefit. So, how is this possible? Because on the one hand, our scriptures say we have to do Rup Dhyan, and on the other hand, our scriptures are telling us that we just have to sing the divine name and that's enough, that we will still receive the benefit of singing the divine name? Well, the first reason is that when saints, God realized saints, Mahapurush, from their very elevated state of divine love consciousness, when they sing the divine name, or whether they hear the divine name, they say from their very elevated state of consciousness, they say, it doesn't matter, just sing the divine name, it's fine. If someone's daughter's name or wife's name is Radha, and if they hear that name Radha, they experience the same bhav that they would have experienced if they were singing and chanting that divine name themselves. So saints, from their very height of their divine consciousness, they tell us, just sing. Just like Bhagavan Shankar says to Parvati ji, Rakaradini namani shinvato mama Parvati Manah prasannatam yati Rama nama bhishankaya. So Bhagavan Shankar says, Lord Shiva says to Parvati ji, that when I hear Ra, my heart feels so happy. I get so happy if someone says Ra, because I think that he's such a good person, he's going to say Ma, Rama. But even after saying Ra, he says Varna, Ravana. It doesn't matter, but when I hear Ra, I feel so happy. Surdas ji says, Jo sukha hot gopal hi gaye, so nahi hot kiye jap tap ke kotik tirath nhaye. Jo sukha hot gopal hi gaye. So Surdas ji says that the ras, the sweetness and the madhurima and the garima and the bliss that is in the divine name of Sri Krishna, in the name of Gopal, it is in none other practice, whether it's whatever the practice may be, japa, tapa, niyam, any other kind of practice, the name of Shri Krishna is so extremely sweet. So this is the one reason, saints from their state of consciousness. And the second reason is to inspire souls like you and I in devotion, in sadhana. Then our Guru tells us that we can chant the divine name. Just chant the divine name. Why? So that at least we will start chanting the divine name. If a beginner, if an aspirant, someone interested in a divine path and devotion, in bhakti, comes to a saint and asks, please teach me sadhana, tell me what I should do to realize God. So on the first day of the saint tells him that, okay, you have to chant the divine name of Radha Krishna, and you also have to do Roop Dhyan, and then you also have to have those deep feelings of longing and yearning and all of that. So the first time comer will come for the first time only and never come back. Because he will be freaked. He will get nervous. He will think like, I have to do all of this? Isn't it enough that I cry for the world all the time? I have to do all of that? Oh, I cannot do it. It's beyond me. I cannot do it. So he will get scared. So on the first day, Guruji says, Kirtan karo. Just chant the divine name. Okay. Okay, Guruji, I will. So he chants the divine name. And then he comes back to his guru and says, well, I've been singing the divine name, but kuch hisab baith nahi raha hai. I'm not experiencing anything, not getting anywhere, just singing Radhe, Radhe, Radhe Govind. So Guruji says, okay, so what you have to do, my son, you have to do Rup Dhyan. You have to remember the divine form along with the chanting. Yes, okay, Guruji, I will do. So he goes away. After some time, he comes back and he says, Guruji, abhi wo prarambhik avastha hai, to wo man makkari karta hai. My mind is, because this is just the beginning, my mind is always running and drifting and it's so fickle. So I'm not really able to like put my mind and do that Rup Dhyan and that remembrance. So Guruji says, okay, do one more thing. You chant the divine name and you do Rup Dhyan, and now you add one more thing. What is it? You add those feelings of longing and yearning for their divine vision. Do that. Okay, Guruji. So our Guru helps us, holds our hand and takes us step by step and inspires us in devotion on this path of bhakti. But the siddhant or the philosophy remains the same. It does not change. And the philosophy is that while remembering or chanting the divine name, we must do Rup Dhyan. That is why Goswami Tulsidas Ji says, Jasu naam sumirat ik bara, utarahi nar bhava sindhu apara. That he says that when we add Rup Dhyan to our sadhana, then when we reach that stage in our devotion, when we would not even be able to sing or chant the divine name fully, Jasu Nam Sumirata Ikabara Utarahi, we would transcend this ocean of Maya forever, for eternity, and reach our goal of divine love, perfect love, Radha Krishna love. So, remembrance, Rup Dhyan, is essential. It's extremely important. The divine name is a divine power, but in order for us to derive the benefit or the ras or experience that grace that is in the divine name, it is very important that we add Rup Dhyan. And of course, during our sadhana, we have 8-9 hours of sadhana throughout the day, every day for the past so many days. And that is what Sri Maharaji's agya or his divine teachings are, is that we must remember Sri Radha Krishna very close to us when we do our sadhana. Boliye Ladli Lal ki, Shrimat Sadguru Sarkar ki,